PK here. On this segment of PK Chats, I'm going to discuss what it means for an NES collection to be complete. Can an NES collection be complete? Is that even truly possible? I think it's very subjective of what an NES collection really is completed. How can it ever be complete? I'm going to talk about a lot of the different variables that put a monkey wrench in the concept of a complete NES collection. First, I'm going to go over some examples. My first example is the Flintstones Surprise at Dinosaur Peak. Obviously a very rare and valuable game. I've heard various accounts that this game was actually only available at Blockbuster. I've never actually heard anything that was confirmed that that was a Blockbuster exclusive, but if that is the case, how can that be part of a complete NES collection considering you could not buy it in a retail store? Secondly, I want to talk about variations. Variations. There are so many variations of different games. A great example would be Legend of Zelda, the gold cart. I used to have the gray cart, but I sold it. Now, if I had done the other thing, if I had sold the gold cart and kept the gray cart, I still have Legend of Zelda. Does that make it a less complete collection if I have the gold or the gray cart? Another great example is Punch-Out for the NES. There are two versions of Punch-Out. There's Punch-Out featuring Mr. Dream, the one I just showed you, and then there is Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, which is the original. The one featuring Mr. Dream is the variation. The only main difference is Mr. Dream has replaced Mike Tyson. He is literally identical to Mike Tyson with the exception that he's white instead of black. Now the question is, which Punch-Out is more important? Which one takes precedence of the other? Does either one take precedence of the other? Does it matter whether you have Mike Tyson's Punch-Out or regular Punch-Out? That's a great question. Another great example is I have a game called World Class Track Meet. What many gamers in the mainstream might not be aware of is that World Class Track Meet is a variation of a very rare and expensive game called Stadium Events. Now, like I said, this is a variation of Stadium Events. Now, some would argue that Stadium Events is very much part of a complete NES collection, even though there was only maybe 200 or so that came out here in North America. So does having this mean I have Stadium Events? No, but it does mean I have a variation of Stadium Events. So the question is, does Stadium Events really make an NES collection complete? Next, I want to talk about compilations, such as Donkey Kong Classic for the NES. Donkey Kong Classic contains both the original Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. Now, if I have this game, do I need the other two to complete my collection? Or vice versa, do I actually need this game if I have the other two? Is this part of a complete NES collection? It's a great question. Next, I want to talk about unauthorized cards. Yeah, those companies. Companies like Tengen, Wisdom Tree, Camerica have all made NES cards that are not authorized by Nintendo and do not get the Nintendo seal of quality. Though there were some Tengen cards that did get that, but for the most part, when Tengen made their own cards, they no longer obviously got the Nintendo seal of quality. Do I need the variations of that? Do I need both versions of Pac-Man? Do I need both versions of RBI Baseball? And what about this game, Tengen Tetris? This is one of the most unauthorized games out there. Because of Nintendo and Atari's dispute over the rights to Tetris, of course Nintendo naturally won, and these games were all pulled off the shelf. There's only maybe about 100,000 of these games that were even actually put out. Is this still considered part of an official, complete NES collection? Probably not according to Nintendo. But according to a lot of other people, yes. And personally, I think it's the best version of Tetris, so it's definitely got to be in my complete NES collection if my NES collection can truly ever be complete, that is. And if these cards are part of a complete NES collection, what makes them any different than a reproduction card? Yeah, I'm going there. Reproduction carts are obviously a lot of times they're homebrews and hacks, or even games from the Famicom that have been put on an NES cart. Now, how are these any less? Obviously, these are very unauthorized. The real question is, does a game that was made by a fan any less unauthorized than a game that was made by Tengen or Camerica or Wisdom Tree? That's a good question. A lot of people might also say, well, none of those games have the Nintendo seal of quality. That's true. That's true. None of these games, in spite of what this reproduction card says, it does not have a legit Nintendo seal of quality. But you know what game does have a legit Nintendo seal of quality? Anticipation. A game like Anticipation has an official Nintendo seal of quality, but this game, Earthbound, or Mother as it's called in Japan, does not. This is considered by Nintendo to be less valuable or important and less part of a canonical complete collection of NES games. That's crazy. How is that game better than this game? It's not, and that's kind of the point. Again, how is this any less authorized than this is? I mean, but most people would consider this part of a complete NES collection. So it's a very subjective, complicated situation. Speaking of cards from across the pond, whether it be Japan or Europe, what if I want to get the game Little Samson? And I don't want to spend a ridiculous amount of money for it. If I buy the PAL region version, I still have the game, or do I? Does it matter whether it's the North American version or the PAL version? Again, that also goes back to variations as well. Obviously the sound quality is going to be different on the PAL version. Another thing to ask yourself is, what about other variations from games across the pond as well, like Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles? Do you truly have all the Ninja Turtles games if you don't have the one with the Mutant Hero Turtles moniker? That's a good question. Heck, why collect a complete NES collection at all? That's another great question. I mean, all these games can pretty much be played through what some folks call dubious means. And honestly, there's a lot of different reasons. Some people collect because they legitimately want to play these games on the original hardware, just like the old days. And some people, what can I say, like a giant trophy room. Like to have their Toy Story jail where they never bring out the game and play them. They just sit there on display. I could be upset about that, but to be honest, they're also preserving those games for future generations, so I can't be completely upset at them. I mean, after all, I mean, when you take a game in and out of, it's metal-to-metal contact, eventually it's going to erode over time, or at least that's what I would assume. I mean, these things were not built to last forever, so I can't completely fault the trophy collectors. But I didn't make this video to debate about trophy collectors or people who do or don't play their games. I made this video because I wanted to start an open dialogue. Let's talk about what it means for an NES collection to be complete, and if it's even possible. I look forward to hearing what you guys have to say. Please comment below. I hope you've enjoyed this segment of PK Chats, and at the very least it's got you thinking about, what is a complete NES collection? Do I need my collection to be complete? Or should I go the Tyler Durden route and never be complete? I don't know. That's entirely up to you. This is PK saying, collect what you like. And thanks for watching, and keep on gaming.